Rejoice, Jerusalem. You may, in your missals, have noticed that at the beginning of this liturgy we have the Statio. It's the church that the Pope, way back in the early centuries, would celebrate at, because each day in Lent has a Statio church. They're still essentially the ones used to this day, and they're there in place already at the time of St. Gregory the Great, who died in 604. Now, the Statio is linked with Jerusalem on this day, hence the references to that holy city right throughout the liturgy. It's one of the 7 major basilicas in Rome, and it's called actually Santa Croce in Gerusalemme, Holy Cross in Jerusalem. And the reason for that is this: after the Edict of Milan, the pattern of setting up proper churches and not just house churches took place. And having imperial authority and also money, there were big basilicas, some standing to this day. Now, the mother of Constantine, St. Helena, was the very one who went to Jerusalem to find, by unearthing, with male help obviously, the very spot where unbroken tradition knew that this is where it happened. And by providence, they could do so because the Romans had deliberately made it impossible to have access to it. Therefore, the whole of Calvary was covered and therefore protected by earth in layers, unapproachable. And of course, they had to find out which, eventually, of these crosses, there were 3 which they found, was the real one, and it was a miracle which showed them which it was. I believe someone fell to his death, and touching this cross was brought to life. So this was brought back by St. Helena to the Eternal City, but not without other bits. They're still there. The inscription, written as it would have been backwards. Hebrew writes backwards, and strangely enough, the Latin and the Greek is also written backwards, with each part corresponding to the Hebrew on top. We have also many other bits, and we have the earth. Now, the point was this: to make it possible to have the same merit as if we were going to Jerusalem, she brought also enough earth to create a new Jerusalem. Hence, it's Santa Croce, Holy Cross in Jerusalem. The earth also came, lots of it. Tomorrow, I'll be celebrating in the evening in an abbey church which is linked with that. They call me back each time in Lent to help because I was conversant with that community for years. And because I was setting up here, they let me have a part of the Holy Cross. It was the former guardian of it who gave it to me, and it's authentic. And we know it's authentic because it creates power and trembling there where the demons don't like it. I told you before about Monsieur Gdansk, who was trying to get rid of these demons, and he threatened him with the relic of the true cross. And the demons immediately cried out, "Not that one! It's got his blood on it." It's the real thing, authenticated by the powers of hell. It's in the tabernacle in my other chapel, because I've got 2 little tabernacles, one in the oratory and the other in the other room. So, one is close to the instrument of our redemption. Every cross is a reminder of it. We need to venerate the cross and also make the sign of the cross with reverence, and not forget that it is an instrument of torture which has earned our salvation with terrible torment to our Saviour. When ordained, on a daily basis, I will be celebrating before a miraculous cross. It was the cross of our ancient abbey in Italy, and the Lord gave a clear sign that he wanted that cross and actually that community there. I've told you before, but I'll say it again for those who haven't heard it, that in the years before we got there, because it had been closed as an abbey since 1462, the local authorities took it away to put it in a museum, and the Lord intervened to stop it. We know, and I've seen the records, that from the moment it was taken from the church and taken to the museum, the whole area between the church and the museum wouldn't stop rocking from mini and sometimes important enough seismographic movements. It was essentially little earthquakes, tremors all the time, and it was a quite clear sign which the people understood, and even the authorities, because it's in print. It had to come back, it was put back, and that's the cross before we would celebrate facing the rising sun, because we kept the high water as we received it from the Middle Ages when it was built. And by the way, it works. If it's not broken, don't fix it. The whole of the architecture was made for it. It's the centre of attention, and it works perfectly facing it. These little coffee tables that we put in front don't work at all. It makes confusion mentally and visually. I close the parenthesis. And we know also how clever the demon is to try and stop anything good. He used it through goodwill, because the community was young and generous and took on too much and became too thinly spread. And I had a dream this week. I was just there again in a very vivid dream. I woke up and it wasn't true. And it made me cry mentally. And I saw again on a recording the brethren chanting, and it hit me how clever old Nick is to stop this beauty for God. And at this time of year we had hundreds upon hundreds of confessions. We had about 500 or 600 or even 700 young people, scouts, camping throughout the Triduum, and they all had to be heard in confession. We were there for hours and hours and hours hearing their confessions until midnight, and then starting the Tenebrae at midnight each time. All these were washed in the blood of Christ. Young people with their life ahead of them. Do you think old Nick was happy about that? How can we demolish this? And he knows exactly how to do it. Find a chink, a good chink, and use that one. Do you know that one big difference between our faith and our practice and that of our Protestant brethren is that we have a lot more going on. I mean, we're always holding hands with heaven. We're working all the time hand in hand with heaven. The sacraments are man and God in combined action. And that extends to many other parts of our life. Only this week, I was talking calmly to a nun friend of mine, and she calmly came out with things which made my hair stand on end. Calmly. It was just day by day. She's quite young, by the way. And with regard to the miracle that we've just heard, she'd had it in her hands when in Spanish Harlem, giving out more food than she had. She was ordered to give it out, and she kept on giving, and there wasn't enough left. She kept on giving nevertheless, and it still came, and only stopped when the last man was served. But then this other day she came out with this. With regard to needs, she has a great devotion to the Saint of Providence. I think you know who he is, the great St. Joseph, would look after the family of Nazareth and be the good worker. Well, he never let her down. And she told me this quite calmly. She had been given this tall order. She was only a very young nun, and she couldn't handle it. But she had this great devotion to St. Joseph. St. Joseph, I can't do it myself. A huge responsibility and no means. So she, out of obedience, carried on nevertheless. And at the door appeared this gentleman. Can I give you a hand? She wanted to know where he was from. Oh, I've just come to give you a hand. What's your name? My name's Joseph. And this started to happen. She tried to get his background and was very unsuccessful. He just wanted to help. So he kept coming, only, however, when she was in dire straits and couldn't fix it herself. Always he worked very well, and it happened each time. He just wore grey things, not drawing attention to himself and saying very little, but always a fantastic worker. And there was always exactly the same quantity she needed of whatever it was that came through his help, physically. Some time later, she was moved to another convent and left that obedience. But then she had contact some time later with sisters of the other convent, and asked, "What about Joseph? Does he still come and see you, and did he give you your hand?" Joseph? Joseph comes up and described him. "I can't never seen him like that at all, ever. Oh, come off, he must be, don't be silly, never seen him." And she coughed on. It was probably St. Joseph. The same case as one who built, as you know, in Santa Fe, that miraculous staircase, which goes up and up and round and round and round, and is impossible to make humanly speaking. But just a good worker who came and went without any fuss or bother. That is our faith. It happens, my friends. And as regards the beauty of our faith, it's to be remembered when it comes to handling a vocation. And by the way, this applies to the young people, because we always, thank God, with young people in the Latin Mass. It's a phenomenon. If you want to see young people in church celebrating the old rite. Well, this I picked up and was quite edified by. It reminds me of what happened when I was in France years ago. We were in choir and in a session, it was at La Trappe at the time, and we were hosting a big contemplative convenio of all these Trappist superiors from all over France, and lots of them, monks and nuns. And I was next to Mother Hortensius, who was geographically extremely maternal. Lovely, warm and cuddly Mother Abbess, goodness incarnate. And she came out with this one time. The other day, somebody came to the door. "What's your name?" She gave her name. "Will you please take me back?" "Who are you?" "Did you not hear the story?" "What story?" "Well, years ago, I jumped the wall of the monastery, but then I regretted it and came back. And the Mother Abbess said, 'You wanted to leave? Leave.' And I could never come back." "Why did you come back now, little one?" "Parce qu'on m'a dit que vous étiez bonne. They told me that you were kind." She hugged her and took her back. The Lord's like that. He hugs us and takes us back. With regard to Old Nick, listen to this. St. Martin de Porres, he was a Dominican, but not ordained. He was somebody who had a lot to do, therefore, with the people. He had medical skills as well, but he had his own powers of healing. So this happened one day. One day, 2 of the novices decided to leave the order and did so without notifying anyone. Similar case. After the Master of Novices had searched everywhere for them, he notified St. Martin of the loss and was reassured by the saint that they would soon return. After fervent prayer, the saint secured permission of the superior to leave during the night to search for them. Arriving at a place called Zervedo, a few miles distant, the saint entered the locked room where the 2 young men had found refuge and found them quietly asleep. Startled by the saint's mysterious appearance, they listened as he gently spoke of the beautiful life they were abandoning. Never even think of leaving the priesthood or a monastery. It's always the case of the grass being greener on the other side, but inside there's only pain and nostalgia. a lost grace always has. They quickly repented, notice, and agreed to return. Well, it's not so simple. It is reported that God rewarded their new resolve by speedily transporting them and the saint to the monastery of the Holy Rosary, that's where it was, where they entered without the doors being unlocked by the porter and without any scandal being given. The next morning, the novice master was surprised to see the two delinquents quietly assisting at the religious services of the community, as though nothing unusual had taken place. The superior was also pleased that the matter had been resolved in such a speedy and quiet manner. The two runaways confirmed St. Martin's prophecy that they would become worthy members of the order. They became great fervent brethren. I'll leave you then with this. Alas, our high altar and our beautiful church, now silent. Alas, silenced by the one who hates beauty and grace. I'll give you these words which I wrote just the other day, lamenting what can happen when man and God cease to listen to each other and walk hand in hand.